I have to say I'm really looking forward to the next speaker. Her name is Kate Smurthwaite. I have to get that right. She's a feminist campaigner. She's also a performer. She's vice chair of the Abortion Rights UK organisation and an active member of London Feminist Network. Kate is British. She's a stand-up comedian and a political activist. She regularly appears on British television and on radio as a pundit, offering informed opinions and comments on subjects ranging from politics, religion and feminism. What more can I say? Please welcome Kate.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Hello. Good. You speak and everything.
Just the men.
Okay. Yeah, I've been invited here to sort of provide a bit of a sum up of the conference, which I haven't actually attended. But to be honest, I think that's the least of our worries. I think you're much more at risk of still being here at midnight while I bang on about something else. So let me keep an eye on the time and try and make a few points that I think need making at the end, because I did catch a little bit of the last couple of sessions. I was over in Belfast actually 2 weeks ago, performing at one of the protest events around the G8. I think it's absolutely fascinating that they held the G8 conference in Northern Ireland. I really hope that when David Cameron got off the plane, somebody stopped him and said, by the way, what you were saying 2 weeks ago about how rising numbers of faith schools will increase community cohesion, how's that working out in Northern Ireland? I don't know about you, but I hate talking to taxi drivers, so I find it boring. But whenever you've ever flown to Belfast and you get in the taxi and you have an accent that sounds like mine, the first thing the taxi driver says is, first time in Belfast. And so I say, no, I come here all the time. And then they want to chat and they say, why do you come to Belfast all the time? And I say, well, I'm the vice chair of Abortion Rights UK. So that's pretty relevant here as well. And I'm really glad it's been covered extensively here. It's right that it should have been. I just think that we can talk all day about all kinds of rights that women should have and how well we're able to access them and how well we're able to make choices about our lives. But essentially, 99.9% of these choices are completely meaningless if we don't start out with control over our own bodies. The rest is kind of an afterthought. We have to get that right. We have to get it right from the start. So, you know, and particularly having the conference here somewhere where it's been gotten so wrong for so long, and where we're only you know, a few months away from the last very high-profile death from exactly that poor legislation. I'm so glad we've talked about it. And funnily enough, over lunch we were talking around my little table about the tidal shift over recent decades in attitudes towards homosexuality in the West. And we were talking about what has driven that. And we came down to one thing, and I think a lot of us can agree on this. One thing that's really made a huge difference to attitudes to homosexuality in Britain, in Ireland, and across Western Europe and America is people coming out. And, you know, an incredibly brave thing to do, especially in the early days, increasingly, hopefully, becoming easier to do. And it made me think whether we could do the same thing with abortion. 1 in 3 women in the UK has had a termination. I don't know the statistics in Ireland. I'm pretty sure that whatever statistics you read, they're wrong, because if there's one thing people don't want to do, it's share that information on the way round. But the reality is the numbers are going to be roughly the same wherever we look around the world. So let's come out about it. Let's start doing that. No, I don't mean like go home and be like, hey everyone, sit down, I want to tell you something. Just mention it casually. Just drop it into conversation. Oh, I feel so relieved. It's like when I had an abortion. Just slip it in, followed by could you pass the sprouts? And it stops those people who are so aggressively against terminations from having the freedom to imagine that this is something that happens to foolish, drunk little teenagers. But in actual fact, it becomes obvious that it's something that happened to your mum and your aunt and your cousin and your friend and your local minister's wife and the woman who lives on your street and the woman who cleans your house, and that this is a real situation that affects women from every background, from every kind of situation. So let's come out about it. And if you're feeling like, well, you know, I'm not quite sure I could go that far, I have a little suggestion for you. I flew over on Ryanair, I know, living the dream. And if you ever fly Ryanair, and I think quite a few of the other airlines do it, but Ryanair, they give you like the in-flight magazine. And inside the cover of the in-flight magazine, there's this lovely, glossy, 2-page feature about people who've flown with Ryanair and what a lovely trip they had. So it's sort of like Jimmy went to London to see a rugby match, and there he is with his mates and his thumbs up and his Guinness hat, looking all rugby-fied and happy. And underneath that, just draw a little woman's figure and write, Sinead came to London for an abortion. And see if the next person notices. And I think that brings me on to activism, because conferences are brilliant. And we can all go away having pat each other on the back and gone, wow, gosh, we are very right, aren't we? But it means nothing unless we take it out back into our lives and get engaged in some activism. And that's why I made those couple of suggestions. I think I want to say this about activism. Don't try and be perfect. Like, don't feel like we have to get everything 100% right all of the time. It's okay to come up with an idea and it not quite work, and then go, actually, you know what, only 6 people came, what the hell, we'll have another one next week, we'll get more people to come, we'll push on with it. I think when it comes to atheism or secularism and feminism, we've got to accept there are quite a few sexist atheists out there, and there are quite a few religious feminists. And we can't go around feeling like we've got to get everybody on exactly the same page. Let's just pile on with it. And those who are with us can come, and when it's too much for them, they can sneak off back home, and we can keep doing the stuff that we know is important. Let's just push on with it. And I loved what I think he's gone over, what Jason was saying about, you know, answer the phone, call me. And I appreciate that. Yes, you're absolutely right. Whoever said, gee, I wish I could afford to spend the time doing that. You're absolutely right. We're always stumped for cash. But you know, that is exactly what we can do, is make ourselves available. And actually, I think if the organisation you want to be a part of, if they're not answering the phone, hand out your number instead. I've written for so many feminist websites and organisations, and they've had a roster of who answers media calls, and people get passed around. In the meantime, I just get the number and call them and go, I'll talk. What do you want to know? And I end up doing loads of stuff. And I think some people are still sat there going, oh, we'd like to have a wider range of voices. And I'm like, I'd like to have louder voices. Just get up and say it. And if other people want to be a part of it, brilliant. They can come and be a part of it too. But don't be afraid to just say, I've got an opinion, I'm happy to appear. And you know, if there's something you want to cover that you don't see covered, start an organisation. Just because there's only one of you doesn't mean that you are not the North Dublin Atheist Feminist Alliance. You are. If you think you are, you are. Get a website, get going, don't wait for the rest of them, just go for it. I think, and this maybe is perhaps the last thing I want to say, and it's, I guess I want to say that I would like to say thank you to the speakers who've been at the conference, and in particular, a lot of speakers, a lot of the women that you've seen are women who put up with death threats, who put up with a lot of attacks and a lot of personal danger. And later on at the comedy show tonight, I'll be talking about some of my favourite death threats. Come along, it'll be hilarious. But I think we've had some amazing speakers. In fact, could we have a round of applause for the amazing speakers that we have had? On one particular point that Mariam made in the last but one session, the one just before the bit before lunch, whatever you want to call it, when she was saying that we have to get away from the idea that attacking religious bigotry means attacking the members of that religion. I think we have to remember that the first victims of religious bigotry are the members of that religion. And we know that, again, I've mentioned this already, we're here in Ireland. We're looking at, you know, decades of clerical sexual abuse, and who were the victims of that? The people who were members of that religion. So we see it played out here so obviously and so clearly. And I've told this story at events that Mariam has been at twice, so I'm glad she's caught her flight, because she would absolutely nod off. But I know it's a story that she found important and relevant. over the last few years, I've been doing a bit of voluntary work teaching English to a group of female asylum seekers in London. And the group that I teach is mostly Christian. They're mostly African and Christian. There's one woman in my group who is an Iranian Muslim. And to my eyes, I would describe her as extremely devout. She always comes with her head covered. She gets up during class and puts a mat down facing in the appropriate direction and says her prayers. She would never allow a man to see her without her headscarf on. She's very cautious about that. One day, I was doing an exercise about adverbs of frequency, because I'm pretty rock and roll. And so words like sometimes, never, always, those kind of words. And I was looking for an example of the use of the word never. And I said, how often do I go to church? And the group said always, sometimes, regularly, usually, every Sunday. And they ran out of options. And eventually somebody said never. And I said, yes, that's right, I never go to church. And I thought these women might tell me that I was going to burn in hell, or that something awful was going to happen to me, or that I was making a terrible mistake. But this Muslim woman turned to me, and what she said was, aren't your parents angry? And I said, well, actually, my parents are also atheists. They also never go to church. And she thought about this for a full 20 seconds, and again I thought she might say that the whole family was destined to burn in the fiery pits of hell. And what she actually said when I told her that my parents also never go to church and are also atheists was, so you're free. And we in this room are very, very fortunate in having the freedom to come and express these opinions and exchange them and have them challenged and share them and communicate with each other. There are literally millions of people around the world, millions of people who you would probably describe as Muslims and Christians and Hindus and all kinds of other words that distinguish them as religious, but for whom actually they would see the opportunity to come to an event like this and to express or even just listen to opinions like this, a sign of a freedom they cannot imagine. To do this, they would have to sacrifice their family, their community, everything about the way of life that they are used to, everything that they've grown up with, everything that they own. We have to be here not just for ourselves, we have to be here for all those millions and millions of people. It could not be more important. Flipping back for one last comment on the subject of abortion, many of you will be familiar with the fantastic organisation Abortion Support Network, who are based in London and provide practical support for women, 99% of whom will come from Ireland and Northern Ireland, who need to travel to London and other parts of the British Isles to get an abortion. And I'm doing a comedy show tonight at a pub called McGrattan's, and I'm not entirely sure where it is, but other people in the room will know. I believe there is a walking party leaving from the hotel at 7:20. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 7:30 about, yeah.
Okay, 7:20, 7:30, round about that time. If you come down to reception, there are plenty of tickets left, and all the money raised, every single penny that you pay on the door, will go directly to Abortion Support Network. I'm going to headline the show, and Comedy Dublin, the people from Comedy Dublin, have put together a lineup of acts that they feel you guys will enjoy, so other acts that cover these kind of subjects, local acts, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll all have a few drinks, and we'll have a really good laugh and finish off the conference in a fun way, but also raising money for a really important cause. So I really hope you'll come along to that. It's been a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope to see you again next year.